Okay, welcome to the Cope With This podcast. This podcast is going to be a podcast where you listen to me, Cope, talk about controversial topics every time we come up with a post. Now, we're not going to necessarily get into the deep stuff, but sometimes we will. But today, what we're going to be talking about, and honestly, this is the reason I started this. I don't know if this is going to go anywhere, but I was passionate enough to talk about this that I started a podcast, okay? That's how big this topic is. And it's mainly because of the conversations I've had about it. But we're going to talk a little bit about college athletics today. Mainly, what defines an everything school, okay? What defines an everything school? So let's get into it. I recently saw a post about everything schools. I think it was on TikTok. And it was posted by one of the the gambling conglomerates. I can't remember which one it was. They listed off there were 6 everything schools that made the postseason in men's football, men's and women's basketball, softball, baseball, and women's volleyball. So there were 6 sports that they got there, and so they included 6 teams. Now, here are the teams. You have North Carolina, you have Oklahoma, you have Oregon, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. So those are the 6 schools that made it to the postseason. And that's a very important distinction I want us to talk about today. The postseason in college sports. And my first comment on there was this. 3 of those 6 teams did not make the college football playoff, period. That's all I said, okay? And I think right now that post has gotten somewhere around 100 comments. I think we're getting close to 2,000 likes on it. Of people just saying, but bowl games are postseason. Bowl games are postseason. Bowl games are postseason. And the amount of times I had to, let's just teach our kids to read. Can we do that? Can we teach our children when they're growing up how to read? Because these people clearly didn't read that I didn't say they didn't make the postseason. I said they didn't make the college football playoff. And so in my opinion, my argument was not that bowl games aren't postseason. I obviously know that bowl games happen after the season starts, guys, okay? I know what that means. And I know one of you internet people are going to probably comment on this and say, what about bowl games? I don't know what to tell you. If you can't listen or read and you just comment a post, it got me to, let's just read. Let's learn how to read. But anyways, what I said was, instead of me saying the college football playoff is the only postseason thing that happens, that's not what I said. What I said was, the point that I was trying to make was, you should not be an everything school. You shouldn't be an everything school if you didn't make the college football playoff. That's my contention, okay? You can't define yourself as an everything school if you didn't make the college football playoff, okay? Now I'm going to start with my bias here, okay? I want y'all to know, for the future of this podcast, whenever we talk about college sports and college athletics, I'm a massive Tennessee fan. Massive Tennessee fan. I moved to Knoxville, and I gotta be honest with you, I didn't think this was the case at the time, but I think, honestly, 50% of the reason why I live in Knoxville and not Nashville or another city in Tennessee is because I love Tennessee football. And I'm a massive Orange fan. If you were to cut me, I would not bleed red. No, sir. I would bleed orange, okay? There would be orange juice coming out of my veins, okay? So, if I'm going to clarify that, and that's the reason why I'm going to start with Tennessee on this list. So you have Tennessee is, in my opinion, the premier everything school, okay? You win the national championship in baseball. You make the college football playoff in softball. You make the playoffs, the NCAA tournament, in women's basketball. You go deep in men's basketball. I wish they'd have gone deeper, but they went deep in men's basketball. And we're disappointed. Here's the other thing, in everything school, in my opinion, everything school would be disappointed by not winning the championship in all these sports, right? So it's almost in all reality, I have this kind of guttural reaction of we made the college football playoff and we deserve to be there, but the way we got beat by Ohio State makes me like cringe to even brag about us making the college football playoff. But we deserve to be there as much, if not more, than half the teams that were already in it. So that's the caveat to that. But Tennessee, I mean, in women's softball, I think this year they're in Omaha. Tennessee baseball in Omaha again, hosting a regional, premier baseball program in the country right now. And I'm assuming women's volleyball. Now, here's the thing. Here's the other caveat. I don't know much about these other sports. College football is probably the only one that I could consider myself a expert adjacent. Okay, I wouldn't even say I'm a college football expert. I'm expert adjacent. I love Tennessee football. I know what every fan knows about Tennessee football. That I know it. But I'm just not going to talk about women's volleyball. So I'm going to leave it to the comments for you guys. If Tennessee's not really that good at volleyball, but we're bragging about them getting in the postseason, then let me know. If we're crazy good, let me know too. I'm just not going to be a 30-year-old single man going to watch a women's volleyball game. I'm just not going to do it. I think that's weird. So that's just not going to be something that I do. But these other sports, I mean, they're I know adjacently on softball just because of the way they're playing this season. And the fact that I think our pitcher set a record for the fastest softball pitch in NCAA. So that's pretty cool. But you have a Tennessee program who's been in all these sports. They're like, I'm going to put them on the shelf because they just obviously belong in this category as of the last 4 years. Really. But definitely in 2024, definitely, unequivocally, 2024 Tennessee is probably the premier everything school. Texas definitely belong to be there. Now, for years, I got to be honest with you, I don't really like Texas. I'm not a huge Texas fan. A lot of my friends are, Aggies. A lot of my friends went to Baylor. A lot of my friends are Texas Tech fans or lived in Lubbock. So I'm not a huge Texas Longhorns guy, okay? But I have to give credit where credit's due. They belong in this category. They're always, and historically, in most of these sports, I don't know, again, women's volleyball, probably softball, basketball, honestly, I'm not a huge expert in, but I know more about that probably than the rest of the sports. But they're in there. They're in the tournament. They were a serious contender in the SEC tournament. They were a serious contender in the NCAA tournament in basketball. They're a serious contender in baseball. Now, part of the reason they're a serious contender in baseball is because they got the pick of the litter on their scheduling and got to play basically the worst teams in the SEC all year. And so when they played a good team, like Tennessee is a really good team, and I think we have a play for the national championship. That they're going there. So we're gonna go to a quick commercial break because I think my audio went out. We're gonna figure out what happened there. Okay, I don't know. We're back. So we stopped at Texas. They belong there. Put them on the shelf. I would argue the other team that's just unequivocal they belong there is Oregon. Their baseball program's in there. Their basketball program's in the NCAA tournament. They weren't even as good this year as they are a lot of the years in the past, and they still made it to the tournament. So you got to give them that credit. And they were the number one football team in America for most of the college football season. So yes, of course, they belong there. I don't know anything about the rest of their sports, and I'm sorry. So sorry, Ducks. Now let's get into the next three, which I don't believe belong in the conversation of an everything school. Okay, we're extending this. Our whole society is all about fairness and equality, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you try to extend and extend and extend, this is what's happening with the college football playoff. You're extending and extending and extending. It starts to lose its value. There are 3 everything schools in the country right now, and obviously I think Tennessee's number 1. But you have 3 everything schools in the country. You don't have 6, and you don't need 6, okay? And the only reason we included these 6 is because they made it to the postseason, which, by all these people's definition, is they made a bowl game, okay? You made a bowl game. Good job. You went 500 in the regular season, and you're a Power 4 conference. Good job, guys. I'm proud of you. But having said that, we're going to start with Ole Miss. I don't know anything about the rest of their sports, so I'm just going to talk about their football program. They have the best argument to be an everything school out of the other 3. They have the best one. And obviously the reason is because a lot of people had them as first out in the tournament. In fact, myself, I have them as first out in the tournament. I did not have Alabama as first out in the tournament. Alabama lost to Oklahoma late in the season. You don't get to win. You don't get to lose a big game late in the season, your third loss, and pretend that you deserve to be in the college football playoff. I hear a lot of you Bama fans, which some of y'all just started watching Alabama football when you were in high school, maybe like 5 years ago, or you know who Nick Saban is and you like go Bama and all that stuff. You guys didn't deserve to be in the college. I don't want to hear anybody say you deserve to be in the college football playoff. You didn't. You had no business being there. You lost 3 games, and one of them was horrendous late in the season, okay? And for the same reason, Ole Miss was out of the tournament, okay? They were out of the playoff. They did not make it, and the reason they didn't make it is because they had 3 losses. Now, it used to be in college football that we would get upset with a team being undefeated and not getting into the playoff. Remember Florida State? In fact, Boise, I think, was one of those teams one year where they went undefeated and didn't get to compete for a national championship because we only had 2 teams. So I can see the argument for 4. But now that we have 12 teams in the college football playoff, and then next year we're going to have 14, and then eventually 16, and then eventually 137. And so the regular season, you're just going to start the season with a playoff game, basically. But you have these schools that, like, you just... They didn't make it. Now, what Ole Miss did do is they made it to a New Year's Six bowl. I don't remember which one, but they made it. So, of course, they belong. Of course they do. Why not? You made it to a major bowl game. I could consider that maybe allowing you in the category of everything schools. But you didn't make it to the playoffs, so I cannot include you in there because you weren't in contention for a national championship. So you're not really in what the postseason, the connotation of postseason usually means that you are at the end of the season competing to go win a championship. You're in a tournament that's going to take you to win the national championship. I'm assuming women's volleyball is the same way, but men's, the College World Series is every team in there could win the national championship. Every single team. Every team in the softball World Series, same thing. They could win it. Basketball, you might be the 68th seed, but you can make a run and go win the Natty. You have the possibility there. That's what entering into the postseason means. It means that you can continue your season to go win a national championship, to go win a championship in the league you're in. Because in basketball, I'm assuming in this list, I hope on this list, we didn't include NIT tournament bids in basketball. Like, are we saying that's postseason play? No, of course not. And so the similar version of that in football now, at this point, is bowl games. Bowl games are not what they used to be, unfortunately. They used to be one of the best traditions in sports. They used to be one of the best traditions in America. Because you would have teams from the Big Ten play the SEC. They would battle it out for their conference to decide who's the better conference. The ACC would play the Pac-12. The Big 12 would play the SEC and the Big 10. You'd have all these teams. And at the end of the season, you could come back and you could say, this was the best team. This was the best conference in the country. And it used to be because of that. It used to have all this tradition behind the Fiesta Bowl and the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Citrus Bowl even. I mean, I don't think that's a major, it wasn't a major bowl, but it was a traditional bowl. I only know that because of one of the things about the bane of the existence of Tennessee is Steve Spurrier. He also used to say you can't spell UT without citrus, and because it's not a major bowl. But it was a traditional bowl, and you had all these traditions, and then now the bowl series gone. There's no such thing as the bowls anymore. They're all useless now, and they're definitely should not be defined as postseason. And here's why: not because of Ole Miss, because they made it to a major bowl. They made it to that New Year's Six bowl. But now I want to talk about Oklahoma. Okay. Now Oklahoma, if you're an Oklahoma fan, if you're an Alabama fan right now and you want me to include Alabama in the everything school list, then I have to include Oklahoma because they whooped your tail in football. Okay. I have to. I hate it, but I have to. I loved watching it because Tennessee had already beaten Oklahoma, and I loved Oklahoma beating Alabama, especially after we had already beat them. But Oklahoma ended their football season at 6-7. Oklahoma had a losing record in football. And you're supposed to tell me that you lost more games than you won in the premier sport in college athletics by a mile, by the way. I think the standard attendance is 70,000 more people for a Tennessee football game than it is a basketball game. 70,000 people. More people watch college football on television than any other sport. I know in Tennessee we probably watch it more than the NFL. And I think the NFL would love to have the numbers that college football has sometimes. I know the Carolina Panthers would. But college football is what's propping up college athletics. It has 4 years. It pays for all the other programs. It plays for all the other sports. All the other sports are a net loss. Basketball might be a winner as well, but primarily football is the one that gives the schools the revenue. And that's why everybody's talking about revenue share. But you forget that that's what it's the premier sport. So you can't be 6-7 at the end of the year. And kudos to Oklahoma, first year in the SEC, and they made a bowl game. I do think that's an achievement that most people do underscore. The SEC, if you make a bowl game, that means you actually did win some SEC games. They beat Alabama, which was an achievement. But they ended their season 6-7. They lost more games than they won. You can't tell me you're in everything school if you lose more games than you win in the premier sport in college athletics. I'm sorry. You can't do it. You're not in everything school. You're off the list. Ole Miss had an argument because they had a winning season. They went to a good bowl game, but they're still off the list. And then the third one, which I think is the funniest one, which is North Carolina. What are we talking about? North Carolina played in the ACC, the 4th best conference in the country last year. Their conference champion didn't even get the first round bye. They just made it to the playoff. They didn't get the first round bye because they weren't good enough. Right? They were lucky to even have 2 teams in the playoff. But you have these. They lost. They were ranked lower. I think Clemson was the champion. They were ranked lower than Boise State. Now I'm going to go back and edit this if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they didn't even get a first round bye their conference. And you're telling me that you want to include this team who's also 6-7. They lost their bowl game as well. You're going to include them on the list of everything schools? North Carolina? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think their basketball program left pretty early in the tournament. I don't even know what their women's basketball team did. And I can't speak to the other sports. I've never seen them on TV playing baseball. Maybe I'm just too much of a casual. I'm definitely just a Tennessee baseball fan. I'm not really a college baseball fan. But I mean, North Carolina, are you kidding me? Now, in years past, when the postseason in college football was different than it is, sure, I'd include them because their basketball program was so good that there's a world where that basketball could drag up the football program in my eyes as an overall school. But not this year. Not this year. You can't tell me that just making a bowl game gives you the right to call yourself an everything school. I'm sorry. It's just not true. So that's the list of all the teams. But I want to hear what you guys think. So if you're a fan of one of the teams that I actually absolutely roasted, especially you Bama fans, that you just caught some strays that you didn't deserve really. But if you're one of these teams that I absolutely roasted, tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why your team is an everything school. Why your school is an everything school. Let me know. Admittedly, I'm not an expert. I'm expert adjacent in college football. But let me know. What do you think? I want to hear the other side of the argument, and we'll respond to it in the next episode. So comment. Obviously, would love to see you like, subscribe. And hey, listen, if you made it this far in the video, I just want to say this. Thank you. Because the fact that you're honoring me with your time, even if you're doing something else, if you're cooking or driving or whatever it is, the fact that you're even considering clicking on this video and watching it is crazy. So we're going to leave it at that. I hope you guys have a great day. Thought for the day is, hey, if you're watching this video, you're above ground. And that's a good thing. So be thankful. Go tell somebody else you love them. And we'll talk soon. See ya.